I have two children, a boy and a girl, 18 and 16. And so far, thanks to our safety obsessed culture, neither one of them has ever had any serious, life threatening accidents. Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, friends, this worries me very much. When I reflect upon my own childhood, I realize that when I was at least half my daughter's age, I had already had many serious accidents, some near fatal, and thank God. These accidents taught me valuable lessons, lessons that have served me well in life and in business. And my kids aren't getting these at all. Let me share some of these experiences and the lessons they taught me. Picture this. I'm 5 years old. I'm racing down a hill on my bicycle out in front of my house, going bumpity, bumpity, bump because the entire street has been ripped up for construction, including parts of the sidewalk. Right in front of my house, the sidewalk continues, but there's this now step that's about 3 to 4 inches. Well, I hit that at full speed. My front tire plants, my back tire shoots up into the air. I'm starting to fly. What do? I reach down and I grab onto my handlebars twice as hard. And this causes me to pivot over top of my handlebars, flipping over them and landing on my front tire, cracking my clavicle. Off to the hospital I go, where they can't put on a cast. They got to give you this padded brace that pulls your shoulders back, which looks incredibly foolish and makes you the butt of jokes at school for the next 3 weeks. But it was worth it because I learned a lesson. I learned that sometimes in life, you gotta learn to let go. Had I let go, I just would have flown forward, did a tumble, probably had a few scrapes, but that would have been it. Instead, when it was clearly going south, I doubled down and I got burnt. In business, they call that the sunk cost fallacy. Incidentally, when you're wearing one of these padded braces, and you go swimming at the local water hole, those things swell up and they'll like cut into your skin and that'll get infected. Now, the second lesson I learned was a few years later. I'm coming home with my friends from school for lunch, and we're going down the road towards a T intersection that we have to cross over. I'm falling a little bit behind my friends, so they've already crossed the street as I'm getting to it. I look, I see a car coming, but in my judgment, I believe I will get across that road before the car gets here. And clearly the car thought so too, because he didn't bother slowing down. I'm walking across the road and just as I'm about 2 steps from my goal, that's when my friends see me and the oncoming car and they flip. Tony, look out, look out. What do? Do I continue to my goal? No, I stopped and I looked at the oncoming car that's now having to slam on its brakes. Too late. It slides into me, knocks me out of my shoes. My shoes were still under the bumper. Well, I went flying. I landed 12 feet later on something soft, my head. And well, frankly, there was lots of blood. There was an ambulance ride to the hospital. There were 9 stitches in my scalp. There was 3 days waiting in the hospital, learning to walk again, and there was a lesson. Trust my own judgment and don't just do what the crowd tells you to. Oh, and incidentally, when you got 9 stitches in your head and you go swimming at the local water hole, it's going to get infected. So the third lesson comes the next summer. I'm playing in the front yard, this half a football field size front yard of my babysitter with her 2 youngest children, the twins, Dennis and David, and we're playing baseball, the 3 of us. So it's 2 against 1. And because I'm a year older, that meant it was those 2 against me. And they made me pitch. So picture it, I'm throwing a ball, they're hitting the ball, it's going way out into the field. I gotta go run get it. And then I got no one to throw to. I got to run back and try and tag them before they get around the bases to score. Needless to say, I lost by a lot every game. Well, after half a summer of losing every game, I finally flipped. I'm like, I am not playing anymore unless we change teams. I just lost my mind. Well, they're like, okay, fine, we'll change teams. So David went out into the field, and Dennis got up there at bat, and I guess because I hadn't had anybody on my team for so long, I stood right behind Dennis. In comes the pitch. Dennis swings the bat, and he smashes me straight into the face. Bam! I am spun around. When I open my eye and peer through my fingers, the whole world is tinged in red. Oh, I knew immediately what had happened. You knocked out my eye! And I start running towards the house. I stopped halfway. Look for it! Because, maybe they could put it on ice and sew it back in. I was 8. What did I know? So I'm running towards the house. Last thing I see before I go in is Dennis and David standing out in that grass, being very ginger about where they step, looking for my eye. The door leads into the living room where my babysitter, her 80-year-old mother, and her 2 oldest teenage daughters are sitting around watching TV. In comes the child they're responsible for, hand on face, blood all over his shirt, screaming, "Dennis knocked out my eye!" Do you remember what happens when you were hit or hurt as a child? What would your parents do? First thing they do is like, oh, let me see that. And they poke and they prod. And then they get the rubbing alcohol to clean it, which hurt a million times worse than the actual injury. So I'm sitting there staring at my babysitter. She's staring at me, and I'm thinking, rubbing alcohol. Well, I do the only thing a kid in that situation would do. I ran straight down the hallway and locked myself in the bathroom. In the bathroom, I look in the mirror. I still have both my eyes. It was a cut in my eyebrow. It was just bleeding profusely. So I wash myself up. I put a little toilet paper on it. And I finally give in to the banging on the doorway. And I'm like, I open it up. It's okay. I still got both my eyes. You can put away that rubbing alcohol. Well, my babysitter looks at it and declares, these need stitches, packs me away in the car, and off we go to the clinic, where I get 2 stitches in my eyebrows and another lesson. Perspective. There are some losses in life that are way worse than losing a ball game or losing a deal or maybe even losing your job. Oh, and incidentally, if you have 2 stitches in your eyebrows and you go swimming at the local water hole, it's gonna get infected. There you have it, folks. 3 major accidents, 1 near fatal, and 3 important lessons. And this is what my kids are missing out on. Let's review. What did I learn? Well, clearly I didn't learn anything about swimming with open wounds, but what I did learn was, 1, you got to learn when to let go, when to walk away. 2, trust your own judgment and don't just do what the crowd tells you. And 3, well, I remember sitting in the back seat of that car, looking out the back window at that front yard where the accident had occurred. And I was thinking to myself, you know what? Not all losses are the same. You got to put them in perspective. Oh, and I also remember thinking to myself, somebody should probably tell those kids to stop looking for my eye. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Tony. That was excellent. I have to say I'm very impressed that you survived your childhood. Well done. And